This time last month, David Williams was praying for rain.
It's been very tough. We had extremely dry weather.
Now he's up to his ankles in mud.
The first 100 mils was absolutely ideal. At the end of the month now, we're nearly up to 300 millimetres, it's just getting too wet now. It'd be just nice to get a couple of weeks sunshine.
Williams Dairy at Vasey is waterlogged, weeks of drenching rain, bringing a set of new challenges.
The rain has been both a blessing and a curse. The ground is so sodden, David has had to delay planting for his winter pastures.
It means his 350 dairy cows will have to remain on silage and grain until things dry up. A third-generation farmer, David knows Mother Nature isn't always kind, but dwindling milk prices and a rise in the cost of electricity have made life on the land that much tougher.
That's one of our major costs, is growing the feed, and there's just been absolutely no milk rise, since we had the cut last year. So it's just doing it really tough.
Still, David considers himself one of the lucky ones.
You do try to prepare the best you can.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News. Newcastle is undoubtedly a city on the move, onwards and upwards with development in all corners of the CBD. The former Empire Hotel site will soon be another spot of growth, with the state government granting approval for the Catholic Church's $29 million residential building this week.
About half of that will be under the affordable housing sort of scheme, and another 10% or so specially constructed for people with disabilities and their carers, and the rest general rental.
Bringing to life a site which has sat vacant for years.
It will activate the space. You'll have people walking in and around here. It's down the road from Market Town. So all in all, I think this is another key move for us.
Hunter Development Corporation says it's part of the broader urban renewal happening right across Newcastle, from the University of Newcastle's new inner city campus to proposed development in the mall and the $500 million light rail project.
That's why the investment's flowing. People are starting to see the value of that Newcastle has to offer. I think we've probably kept it too secret for too long.
Following in the footsteps of the CBD, the suburb of Wickham could also reach new heights. Council has endorsed its draft master plan, which could see development of up to 20 stories near the new transport interchange. Renee Feder, NBN News. It's an issue not often talked about, but that's something James Tucci wants to change. The loss of his friend Steve Morris to suicide last year, prompting the Newcastle businessman to take action.
After Steve's passing, it was one of those things where you drink with a lot of your friends to celebrate the life of someone, And when it didn't make sense to any of us, it was a case of, well, something good has to come of this.
Brave Men was born, an initiative launched today over lunch in conjunction with Lifeline Hunter and Central Coast. Its message, be real and voice emotion.
Awareness of it and the hope of preventing any other future suicide was the goal.
We can really encourage others to be brave and speak up as well.
According to Lifeline, 8 people take their lives every day in Australia, with men making up 75% of all deaths by suicide. It's an alarming statistic, and Lifeline is determined to address it.
We are really about getting out in the community and being proactive and doing our best to create that social environment that encourages the conversation to be real.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
At 34, Anthony Tupou is a veteran of the game but an excited debutant for the Knights.
14, 15 years later, it's finally happening.
It all started in Newcastle for the local junior, but he never had the dream NRL debut in the red and blue of the Knights.
Feels like I'm actually debuting for the NRL when Brownie said I was going to play. That's the feeling I had, and it just took me back to when I got the call up for the Roosters, and it's a similar feeling, and I don't know, I just never thought at this stage in my career that I'd have them feelings again.
He'll need every ounce of his experience tomorrow against one of his former clubs. The Sharks put a massive 98 points on the Knights last season, including an annihilation the club would rather forget.
We've turned a page. We've felt this the off season, and we're a new side. That's why it was so disappointing last week against Penrith.
The skipper confident that 40-0 thumping last weekend won't be repeated. Tupou's debut and the return of Brendan Elliott bolstering the side.
Yeah, obviously having Brendan back there at fullback helps, and we can keep the team as consistent with the positions and work on those combinations as best we can.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News. He's the type of signing the Jets want.
We want players that can play in the best teams in the league, and that's the sort of player we want here. And we're not second best. We want to win the league, so we want the best players.
Daniel Georgievski certainly fits that brief. The Macedonian international has played in the Champions League and won an A-League title with current club Melbourne Victory.
We just need experienced players that have been there and done that, have been successful when the push comes to shove.
No chance of making the six. It's all about pride and positions against the Wanderers at home tomorrow.
We've been disappointed, and the emotional response has been, it's not good enough, and we need to work hard and push harder. But a rational response says that we've played a certain way all year. We need to make sure we play that same way, but do so with a little bit more urgency and a little bit more desperation.
Someone looking for some game time in the final 3 rounds, Nick Cowburn, the young defender just back from Spain after playing in an Australian development squad.
Puts a little bit of confidence back into my game. Two 90-minute performances against international teams, in good performances individually and as a team, really helps as the confidence as well.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Newcastle is hot property.
In my 25 years of selling, I've probably not seen a market as busy as we're in at the moment.
This home in Maryville sold this week for $1.175 million, the highest price in 2 years for the inner city suburb. Not only are prices high, but so is demand. Estate agent George Rafferty has just experienced his biggest month since opening just over a year ago.
We've had some amazing times, but March this year has been an amazing month. We've had over 22 sales and lots of people still looking for something that suits their needs.
He's finding properties are now spending on average 21 days or less on the market. This new listing, also in Maryville, had 50 people through its doors this morning, a competitive scene for buyers.
The market's hot. Everywhere you go, there's people everywhere. Back 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this.
As for the future of the market, Mr Rafferty believes busy times are still in store for Newcastle, with potential buyers from across Australia and the world attracted to the area.
I think it's not just about Newcastle in essence, it's about what the actual city offers, like the schooling for families, the parks, the beaches, just the lifestyle.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
What the council's doing to the levy is just fantastic, and opening it all up, and so we'll soon be able to look at the Hunter River just here, and it's drawing people in.
There was plenty of chatter around this barbecue in Maitland today. The topic of conversation, bullying, something these teenagers say isn't talked about enough.
It does get spoken about at school, but that's between teachers and students, and they don't always listen because, teens don't like to listen to adults. That's just how it happens. The students really need to come together to stop it, and I think that's what will make schools more safe.
The Anti-Bullying Barbie is the first of 7 events supported by Maitland Council for this year's Australian Youth Week. Local students from 6 major high schools are here today to workshop ways that they can combat bullying.
Activities are focused around student solutions, so it's more creative and arts and crafts and positive thought process behind what happens around it. So the antithesis of bullying is embracing culture and diversity and celebrating successes.
Youth Express has found bullying is a contributing factor for why so many Hunter students drop out of school.
If you're getting targeted, it's actually easier for you to leave versus the bully, and so that's something that they kind of brought them together on the topic.
One of the students in the focus group says standing up for others is a skill she promotes.
How to be an active bystander, so not just how to cope with bullying and in your own personal life, but how to help your friends and your peers.
Youth Week runs until April 9. Georgia Ma, NBN News.
We're really thrilled to be listed in the top 5 for the state, and we hope that if we can get some more phones recycled by the end of April that we might actually win the award for this year.
Head and shoulders above most other 16-year-olds, Rickson Wingrove's baseball prospects are sky high. The Cardiff High student is headed to the US next week as part of a World Select team.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people watching over there and get to play against some good kids, which will good lead up to the World Cup hopefully in Canada, which should be fun.
NBN News met Rickson and his cousin Josh earlier this year after impressing at the National Championships. Fourth-generation baseballers, it's Rickson who nabbed the tournament MVP and now has a chance to compete against some of the world's up-and-comers, including players from big-name major league clubs like the New York Yankees.
Their farm system with some of their prospects in there, so it should be some good fun.
Fun and a huge opportunity to impress professional scouts with games against other international amateur teams.
Hopefully it gets someone's eye and hopefully end of the year can either get college or a pro contract.
On his way to hopefully follow in the footsteps of other Hunter products like Ryan Rowland-Smith and crack the big time.
There's only 750 players in the major leagues out of everybody that plays it around the world. It's going to be a long journey, but hopefully I can get there.
It's an unsightly and disrespectful act in a messy battle over a car race.
It's vandalism. Total, absolute act of vandalism.
Anti-supercar graffiti spray painted across the Watt Street building, on the facade, the windows, stairs and footpath. It's thought the United Services Club was targeted simply because it's home to an office for the Newcastle 500 event.
I was just in shock, disgusted that somebody would do this. They would vandalise an historic building.
The club was established in 1927 by World War I veterans and stands today as a symbol of respect to all returned servicemen and women. The incident has prompted condemnation from all sides, with supercars saying it's a shame people who may be opposed to the event have expressed their views by vandalising a building which honours veterans. While the Newcastle East Residents Group says it never has and never will encourage any member of the public to commit unlawful acts in pursuing their rights to protest. While the building hasn't sustained any permanent damage, the clean-up is expected to be costly and could take days. In the meantime, the vandals are still on the run, but police are investigating.
We'd like to find out who did it and they will be prosecuted. Everyone's got their right to their own opinion, but do not express it by writing on our building.
And late today, another tag at the East End, this time on Shortland Esplanade. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Walking for a cause. These pups are up early in show of support for fellow service dogs. 200 canines gathered at Crowders Bay Park to raise money for Delta Therapy dogs. The initiative sees owners take their furry friends to aged care homes, hospitals, schools and libraries to spread some love and cheer. Walk organisers say that dogs have the ability to give people what modern medicine cannot.
Unconditioning love
And they don't judge. You just go in there for a pat and a chat. Whether it's a resident or a child out there, just bring them out of themselves and they learn to relax.
Today, some dressed up and some performed as part of efforts to generate enough funds for 20 extra therapy dogs for the hunter. Delta volunteers Margaret and Harley Jackson have been visiting schools and aged care homes for 6 years.
We go to Belmont High School, to the special unit out there with the children on the autism spectrum and Down syndrome, and they actually read to Harley because they don't feel any pressure reading to a dog.
Canines of all shapes and sizes are welcome at Delta Dogs, and their pet owners too, just as long as you're willing to give a little bit of love. Georgia Ma, NBN News.
Being centralised in Newcastle was a great thing. You know, just next to the mall, just next to Queen's Wharf, the cafes were full, and I think everyone had a good time.
The Jets looked like opening the scoring against the in-form Wanderers. Wayne Brown, Andrew Naboot and Daniel Mullen all had decent chances. But as halftime approached, Western Sydney broke the deadlock through Robbie Cornthwaite. 90 seconds later, it was 2-0. The Wanderers were up 3-0 after the break when Cornthwaite bagged a brace. But the frustration didn't end there for Newcastle. Andrew Hoole's response to being substituted earned him a spray from assistant coach Clayton Zane, and it could hurt his chances of featuring in the final 2 games.
Players they do as they're told. He gets substituted, he comes off, and he's supposed to deal with that and take that. He didn't, and that's his problem now.
In contrast, Labano Haliti proved effective in his cameo and could see more game time. As for the coach, Mark Jones is confident his job isn't on the line.
22 rounds in the season, we're possibly the best performance we've had in 6 years, and round 25 I can't coach. I'm not going to wear that.
The newly promoted Roosters had the first opportunity through Thomas Spare. A minute later, he turned provider for Sam Walker. James Virgili had a chance to open Broadmeadow's account. It took a Lake Macquarie defensive mix-up to give him another shot. The Magic's Lawrence Fotef forced a solid save out of Ben Kelly, while skipper Josh Pinnington should have scored just before the break. But it was the visitors who hit the front early in the second half thanks to Justin Broadley. Kelly kept Peter Haynes at bay at the other end before a Magic mix-up at the back handed Walker a brace. Piddington was sent off in the aftermath and Walker took full advantage, bagging an impressive hat-trick in the 4-1 win.
I don't know what they're thinking, but look, they don't stop trying, Newcastle, not one bit. They just keep trying.
Tremendous fight, didn't they?
They did, absolutely. And I went back and checked their results all year, bar last week. They've won one game and been in every other game, so they try their guts out, that's for sure.
They're like sister cities. What's Cessna? Moving to Cessna.
Where's poor Cessna?
Yeah, Jack, move to Cessna.
With her son in custody, Wade Still's mother left Newcastle Court and wasn't holding back.
How's your son doing?
My son, just get out my way.
Her 22-year-old son is accused of going on an ice-filled rampage early Sunday morning, attacking 2 paramedics as they helped his girlfriend in labour.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, you're all crazy. You don't even know what you're talking about. Get out of my face.
In what the prosecutor today labelled unprovoked, very violent episodes, Still allegedly assaulted 1 paramedic and threatened both, telling one to get out of the way or I'll smash your face in, and the other, get out of the ambulance or I'll smash you. The court heard Still then allegedly turned his focus to a police officer, punching him in the shoulder and sternum as he was arrested. He was charged with obstructing a paramedic, malicious damage, assaulting police and resisting arrest. Still's solicitor argued the volatility and heightened emotions at the time of all of this may have been contributing factors. Still was visibly upset as he was in the dock, crying and swaying back and forth on several occasions, before bursting into tears as his bail was denied. The matter is due to be heard again in May. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
As coastal sites go, they don't come much better than this. Overlooking the Glenrock Conservation Area, it's a vast parcel of land with spectacular views. The bowling club closed in 2015. Now Awabakal Land Council has lodged a land claim. Its new CEO says so far there are no clear plans for the site.
This is such a prime piece of real estate that we'd be remiss if we didn't, on behalf of the community, make the claim to perhaps in the future make some economic prosperity for the Aboriginal community from that piece of land.
Rob Russell admits it could be a lengthy wait for a decision on the claim.
This could take anywhere from 2 months to 20 years. We have no control over what might happen.
There are concerns it could echo the Newcastle Post Office saga. That claim was lodged in 2011, won in 2014. Investors were sought last June, then an administrator was appointed, and it's still in limbo. Previous deals between developers and the Land Council frustrating Awabakal's new management.
Due to caveats on the post office property being lodged by some external organisations, our legal advice is that we can do nothing with the property.
Meanwhile, the Land Council plans to meet with the Burwood Commons Group, which wants to keep the bolo as a community asset.
The greatest fear in the community is that it will be sold off to a developer and we won't be able to access the land anymore.
Local MP Jodie Harrison agrees, concerned it could languish and fall into the hands of, quote, greedy developers. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A 4-star hotel checking into Newcastle's Harbourside Strip. It's slated for this site next to Hunter Water, which is now off the market after being secured by Doma Group. The Hunter Development Corporation says the Canberra firm's mixed-use hotel and homes pitch was the standout proposal.
They put forward what we felt was the best opportunity for not only job growth in the area, but also the design and the opportunity to do something a little bit different.
The $45 million development includes a 149-room hotel, 62 residential apartments, 5 serviced apartments and mixed commercial and residential space. The developers are far from the new kids on the block, having just completed major commercial and residential projects just down the road. They've also purchased the adjacent car park. A DA for that site will be lodged in a fortnight. But Doma Group says every development will be unique.
every project we do has its own distinct design and feel. There's no hiding that this one here is going to have a bit of a feel that will make it recognisable.
It expects to lodge formal plans for this site in 6 months.
Pending approval, then circa 18 to 20 months to build the project. So we'd like to be on site ideally early next year.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
So it's about windows into wartime. It's about what was happening on the home front during the war and just after the war.
He helped the Sharks to a narrow win over the Knights on Saturday. Less than 24 hours later, Jack Bird was in Newcastle to meet club officials.
People often ask, do you think you're a chance? And I say the fact that we've had a meet with him, I would suspect we're a rough chance, but how good a chance are we? He doesn't give much away, Birdie, so I couldn't honestly tell you, but he did pop up yesterday for a hello.
Brown believes Newcastle's improved performances so far this season are already helping with recruitment. Signing Bird would be another boost.
You know, other players that we're looking at and talking to would know that Bird is coming, and they would see that as a great sign.
For now, the coach is focusing on Friday's clash with Canterbury at McDonald Jones Stadium. Despite the Bulldogs sitting 12th, Brown believes their forwards are some of the biggest and best in the NRL.
There's a big challenge here for the boys. Obviously, it's a bit easier for the coaches sitting up in the stand. It doesn't matter how big they are to us. I think Canterbury's going far better than what people think.
Nathan Ross is considered a strong chance of playing after being ruled out late last week because of a calf problem, while Jack Stockwell is expected to take the field despite having 13 stitches to his chin. Sione Matautia will be monitored this week and follow concussion guidelines.
These ones are out of coaches' hands. These are all to do with the experts, and Dr. Levi is one of the world-renowned ones, so he'll make the decision, which is in Sione's best term interests, and whatever we get told by those people are the ones that we run with.
No one would have expected the Roosters to be top of the NPL table 4 rounds in, except maybe themselves.
It's early days yet, but I'm not surprised with where we are at the moment.
Just promoted back into the top flight, yesterday's 4-1 win over the more fancied Magic has sent a warning shot, a hat trick of warning shots. The treble has the modest Roosters stalwart in the hunt to be the league's leading goal scorer.
Even prouder of the boys and like the effort that all they put in, and my name's on the score sheet, but I can't claim credit for all the goals.
This weekend, Lake Macquarie hosts a Jaffers side coming off a shock loss to Valentine.
We'll lift towards them. As Richo said, they're the Ferraris of the competition, so we'll battle hard again, we'll lift, and we'll all put in an team effort.
But don't think for a second the surprise packets will be put off by the likes of former A-League stars Joel Griffiths and Jobe Wheelhouse.
We're not intimidated by anyone, we don't need to be, we don't have any expectations. We're all looking forward to it. It's good to play against the calibre of those people and hopefully get another 3 points and rub it in.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
tropical moisture from ex-cyclone Debbie coming down from the north, but coming up from the south is the strongest cold front, and those two air masses have been meeting over the region, and that's why we've seen the rain increase, getting really heavy this evening. But once it does move away, we're going to see the onshore winds build, and we'll see coastal showers return as we move into the early part of next weekend. But Saturday should be predominantly fine.
For more than 50 years, Gary Alexander Forbes has lived with the knowledge of his actions. Today, he was held accountable. Now 73, Forbes was sentenced to a 2-year good behaviour bond for indecently assaulting two brothers back in the 1960s. His defence barrister argued Forbes had always accepted responsibility for the offences, labelling them as totally out of character. He said Forbes had gone on to live a long, fruitful and beneficial life. Prosecutor Kylie Henry, however, said the crimes were objectively serious ones and that Forbes had abused his position of trust at the time. The offences were committed separately over several years in the 1960s, beginning with one brother before moving to the younger sibling. Forbes was charged last year, pleading guilty to 3 counts of assaulting a male and committing an act of indecency. In sentencing, Judge Ellis said Forbes had expressed genuine remorse and contrition over the offences, and that when first confronted with the allegations in 1995, immediately confessed his guilt, including publicly some 4 years later to his church. He went on to say Forbes has lived an otherwise exemplary lifestyle and, given more than 50 years has passed since the offences were committed, was satisfied he was unlikely to re-offend. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Robin Ashley Brown knows how hard a dementia diagnosis can hit.
It was very hard to accept the diagnosis. Even though you notice that things aren't quite the same, you really don't expect dementia.
Today, she shared her husband's journey at a seminar at Warners Bay, aimed at showing how those with the disease can still lead a fulfilling life. Across the Hunter and Central Coast, close to 24,000 people are living with dementia. While many of those people experience feelings of social isolation, this was all about making sure that doesn't happen.
You've got to keep going. You don't just immediately drop out of life.
Even if you have a diagnosis of dementia or you're the carer of someone, there is still a lot you can do and live your life to the full and still be actively involved within the community.
One place making that possible, the Hunter Dementia and Memory Resource Centre at Hamilton. It provides a chance for those with the illness and their carers to connect with others. And help is always on hand.
They come into the office and they source information and resources and try and arm themselves for the road ahead. And that's exactly what we want them to do.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
A sweet end to working life for a very sweet man. Joey Timms was clearly embarrassed by all the fuss as Mayfield McDonald celebrated his years of service. As tradition dictates, the 55-year-old was presented with a watch, but the keen Manly fan was more excited to receive team merchandise and tickets. The day also meaning a lot to his sister and elderly mother.
He's been, so proud that he's had a real job and been employed in McDonald's and doing a responsible job. So it's been a great deal to him.
And the feelings mutual.
Having Joey part of our team and part of our family has been really good.
This has been Joey's office for the past 11 years. In that time, he's gone from being an employee to a member of the McDonald's family. He's also discovered his favourite job, cleaning the windows.
He'd tell me that, he had a special bottle and he'd do them on the inside and then he'd do them on the outside.
Joey's sister Claire says he'll now spend his days pursuing interests like drawing, musicals and football. And the retiree only needed one word to describe how he feels about that.
Happy.
You're happy. Yeah.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
His first goal this season was playing in round one. On Saturday, Ross will line up for his 30th NRL game. Not bad for a bloke who was told he'd never play one.
To get to 30, that's massive, so I'll be going out there as if this is my 300th. I just cherish every game and every moment, and then I've got to keep putting in good performances to hopefully get selected or be in the conversation for City Country.
While some of his teammates have put last season's big losses to the Sharks behind them, Ross is using them as motivation.
We had a couple of tough run-ins with them, and for us it's going out there and showing not just them but ourselves how far we've come in the past 12 months.
The winger says he's now training freely after suffering an ankle injury against the Rabbitohs. Teammate Mitch Barnett is racing to be fit to face Cronulla, but Ross believes he's a big chance.
You won't find too many people tougher than Mitch Barnett, and if there's any way or capacity that he has a decision in him playing, he will be playing.
It's always been a dream of mine to be able to pull on a red and blue jersey. I'm a strong Novocastrian and I love footy. My partner is obviously with the Knights for 9 years, growing up in this area, and to represent the Knights, it's going to be a massive honour.
We've got girls travelling from all over, New South Wales, from Singleton all the way up to Port Macquarie just for training sessions, and Sydney too. So, I'm just over the moon for them.
Jeffrey Michael Strong's trial was due to begin today at Newcastle District Court, but this morning the 45-year-old pleaded guilty to causing the death of his co-worker Glenn Canning. Strong appeared before Judge Roy Ellis, where he was arraigned on one charge of manslaughter and one of assault causing death. While he pleaded not guilty to the more serious offence of manslaughter, he admitted to the lesser charge, which was accepted by the Crown. 45-year-old Glenn Canning was the victim of a violent attack at Crawford's Transport at Sandgate in 2015. On the afternoon of August 4, Strong's prime mover and Mr Canning's forklift were involved in what was described as a minor collision. It sparked an argument which escalated to the point where Strong punched the victim several times in the head as he sat in his forklift. Mr Canning was knocked unconscious. He was taken to John Hunter Hospital where he passed away. Strong has been on bail since being charged. That was continued after he entered his plea this morning. The charge of assault causing death carries a maximum penalty of 20 years. Strong will return to Newcastle District Court on June 23 for sentencing.
It's yet another layer of confusion for a community already struggling to cope with the RAF contamination saga. Residents like Lindsay Clout have now been told they should have even less exposure to the chemicals stemming from firefighting foam once used at the Williamtown base.
And there are people out there asking questions, well, what do their blood test results mean now? If the standards are so much lower, does it mean that they are in a dangerous health position?
Under the new guidelines released by the Federal Health Department, the tolerable daily intake of PFOS in drinking water has been substantially reduced from 0.5 micrograms per litre to 0.07 and from 5 to 0.56 micrograms per litre when it comes to PFOA.
When those interim standards were released that were 78 times higher or in that vicinity, we knew then, people in the community were saying, look, that can't be right. We all said it at the time. I feel as though our community's been vindicated and their concerns have been vindicated.
But the Chief Medical Officer's report describes the new guidelines as precautionary measures, adding there is no consistent evidence that exposure to the chemicals causes adverse health effects in humans.
How can we be telling people that there is a tolerable daily intake of this chemical if we're going to be precautionary? We would think zero intake would be precautionary.
Representatives of the Health and Defence Departments will hold a meeting with community members in Williamtown on Thursday to explain the revised guidelines.
We have contaminated groundwater, we have contaminated surface water, and soil is contaminated. No amount of words is going to fix that. What we want is some action.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Paying tribute to those who sacrificed everything a century ago. Newcastle students scripted their own interpretation of our military's battles in Belgium during World War I. The annual Anzac performance educates pupils on wartime history, touching on local involvement. This year, Captain Clarence Jeffries was in the spotlight.
He grew up in Wallsend, he went to Newcastle High School. A lot of what we talk about is that he was a VC recipient, a Victoria Cross recipient, which is one of the highest military honours.
For the first time, the Anzac tribute will tour schools in the Upper Hunter, teaching the younger generation about our brave diggers.
The nature of remembrance and why do we remember, why do we commemorate.
Among the audience, the Belgian ambassador to Australia, in town to open a travelling exhibition which shows the war from his country's perspective.
Our way of saying thank you for the sacrifice that was made 100 years ago by Australian soldiers.
And his thoughts on today's performance?
I would say flabbergasting.
The exhibition details the history of the war through 30 illustrated panels. Detailed maps, letters to loved ones, photos and battle plans. They tell a story of the Australians and Belgians who gave their lives for their country. It's open at Newcastle Museum until April 28. Georgia Marr, NBN News.
This place with the water running out of the elephant, it's just very tranquil, and it really is. It's really restful.
He ran really hard last week. He'll continue the improvements this week. He won't be playing this week, but we look forward to hopefully getting back into training with the group towards the back end of the week.
When Jared Mullen was suspended in pre-season, Brock could have been a lamb to the slaughter as he was promoted to 5/8. 5 rounds in, he's justified his selection, but today made some frank admissions about his game, including his combination with Trent Hodkinson.
Obviously, mate, it can be better. Every combination can be better, but we're still working on things and we're learning as the year goes on. So at the moment, I'm pretty happy and positive with how things are going. Obviously, a couple of wins would be nice.
Lamb is also keen to develop his kicking game, but he's happy with the progress he's made in defence.
I probably had one of my best defensive games on the weekend, which gave me a lot of confidence compared to weeks before. So I've just been really focusing on getting my body in front and doing the little things in defence. And when I do that, my confidence comes out, which is good.
Not even the potential signing of Jack Bird has him worried. The 20-year-old believes he'd learn a lot from the premiership winner.
The main thing is if he does come up here, it's going to help the team. And personally, I'd love to see the club succeed. So he's going to be an asset to the club if he comes. So yeah, it'd be really good to see him come.
Former Shark Jacob Gagan was a late inclusion against his old club on Saturday as he made his top-grade debut for Newcastle.
I was hoping to get a start, but yeah, it all happened pretty quick. I only found out not long before the game started, but once I found out, I was pretty stoked that I got the opportunity.
He's more than happy with his move to the Knights, so will he encourage Bird to do the same?
Oh, that's his decision. I'd like to think he would come up, but that's all up to him, mate.
Gagan has been moved to an extended bench for Friday's clash with the Bulldogs, with Nathan Ross on track in his recovery from a calf complaint. Sione Matautia didn't train today. He's been named in the squad, but will still have to pass a concussion test.